Crystalina Evert. Welcome to Power and Witness podcast, and wanted to talk to you about your new initiative, Women Made New. You've been here taping a series, and you've gathered women to give reflections right on the women's spiritual journey and this maybe challenges they face. Tell us a little bit about that. Like maybe you have the typical devout Catholic woman trying to raise her family. What are the challenges for her out there?
You know, I think it's the culture today. One, it's almost like it's against women and our vocation and what we stand for and life and what we're trying to do at home and have something good, holy, and sacred. But also, I think the challenges aren't on the outside of us as women and moms. I really believe the challenges are the challenges that we're bringing ourselves with our own unhealed wounds.
Right.
That's where the real challenge lies, because when I married Jason, we walked down that aisle, I had gone through a lot in high school and I needed a lot of healing and I had my conversion. But when I got married, I really thought, oh my gosh, I'm just starting this whole new life and I'm leaving the baggage of all of that outside the door and it's going to be wonderful. And I'm not going to be like my parents and my family and make their same mistakes. It's going to be different, right? And so many people fall into that trap. And a couple years into marriage, I really started struggling and I had a hard time because I think those things, well, what makes me actually think that I have the tools in my toolbox of life, you know, my experiences of how I grew up, that I'm not going to make it different because that's all I knew. Right. And so people have this assumption, well, it's going to be different. Well, excuse me, why? Why is it going to be different? What is it you have? What have you healed in your life? And I had none of that. And so also I was a casualty of the 60s, basically, of the women leaving their families behind to go have, careers and build empires and, don't waste your time, get rid of your veils and your aprons and let's go, ladies. We're like men, and they're leaving their children behind. But in that, and my mom had to do it out of necessity because my father left when I was 2. So she was raising us and had to take care of us and provide for us. So it was understandable, but it was still that same kind of culture. And I didn't have that homemaker and learning that essence of a Catholic mom and wife and how do you run a Catholic household? I didn't even have the grandma that could teach me those things because my grandfather left her for another woman when I was 11. And it was like, wow. And grandma was struggled and it was hard. And she's not baking pies and teaching me how to clean house and fold clothes. Like she's trying to survive herself,
So and she was working.
She had a lot going on. And it was just really hard and sad. But unfortunately, a lot of women have experienced that, our own hurts and wounds that they will bring into their household and it will erupt. And we're so good at stuffing our stuff, putting lipstick on it and acting like we're okay and wear that mask every day when we're not. So
what are some of the things to heal that you found were helpful?
In the book, I talk about 4 pillars of healing that I really had to go through. And one of them was counseling, which it was really hard for me because I knew I needed something. And every time I go to adoration, I went as far as I kind of could. But there was such a struggle. And I knew God was asking me to go to counseling. And my family, that's one thing you just didn't do. You don't pay someone to talk to you about your problems. That means you've got like really serious like psychological sickness, and you don't do that. Like that's not proper. So it was hard for me to kind of get over that stigma and just like, wow, am I that broken? And so it was just things that were told to me that I grew up with that was hard. But at the same time, God will take you to where he wants you and his will for you. And sometimes he'll just leave you there until it's like, okay, are we going to do this? Or are we not, And of course I want God's will in my life, but it's not always easy to embrace. It's not always easy to follow. It's very difficult, but at the same time I had to, and I ended up going to counseling. And Jesus walked that with me.
Right. But the first step for you was adoration. I remember years ago being on the show, and you had a little card with a monstrance on it. I think it was a prayer for priests.
Prayer for priests. I just made these holy cards for my parish because I started a holy hour for priests for that year to just pray for them because I realized they're really on the front lines and they need our prayers and we need to be praying for them because, without them, we don't have Jesus. And they're there to help us and spiritually grow and And it's really a battle. And if we don't we have to take care of each other. It's like people go to priests and they're like, can you pray for me? Can I go to confession? I need baptism. I need to get married. But it's like, well, Father, what do you need too? Like, how can I help you? Because we're a family and we help each other. Yeah. So I just wanted to pray for priests, and they did very well. And the holy hour was great in our parish, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And the church was packed before Mass, and it was beautiful. Like, if there's a need and God puts something on your heart, don't be afraid to kind of feel that. Yeah. So I did go to confession. I did the sacraments, and that started there, really, confession. But you have to, you really have to like kind of go deeper than that. And God will tell you when it's time.
Yeah. And I remember in seminary with the formation, you know, they have like academic and pastoral and a human formation and the spiritual formation. But I remember them teaching us that the spiritual really drives the whole thing. Like, all these things are important, but in a certain sense, like I mean, it can come in, I guess, different orders, but it just connects to me that, okay, you're in adoration and you feel led to do this. Like, God wants you to do this, the counseling, and like the spiritual's driving that full healing in all these different areas, right?
Yes. But I mean, I had my conversion in high school from living that filthy life, you know?
Right.
And so it's like almost a journey, but you're always going deeper when it comes to your relationship with Jesus, right? He's always calling you to go do more, be better, higher calling to where you're at. And I feel like that's just was the next stage of my life, my spirituality. And so I ended up going to counseling. But within counseling, and thank God I did, I found out that I was sexually abused when I was a little girl, and I completely just suppressed so much. And you know, it was a very hard thing to grasp, and have to go like the memories and just have to realize what was really going on. But at the same time, I will say it was such a blessing in my life, because I made so much to myself for the first time.
You made what?
So much sense to myself. Okay. Like it made sense why I sexualized my anger in high school, why it was hard for me to receive or give love, because of this massive wound that I just had buried, that I was operating out of. And women don't realize you will operate out of those wounds until you can just face it, you can own it, you can heal it. And the lies and distortion that I used to think, or just things that affected me, they don't anymore. But it took a lot of healing and letting Jesus go in there and heal that and bring his light.
And you had completely suppressed the memory.
Yes, it was, yes. Wow. And it was when I was so young.
Yeah.
So it affected a lot.
And then to bring Jesus in to heal it, what does that look like? How do you do that?
It's hard. It's not easy. It's not an easy place to go. Those aren't things to face. And then everything that was piled on top of it as well that stemmed from that wound, you know, and everything that happened in high school and things that I allowed or things people did to me or whatever it was. It's like you really have to go into the brambles. Like you really have to go deep, and there's no other way. Yeah. We can try to medicate things, yes, and sometimes that's okay, but we have distractions. We maybe want to just dive into our Netflix or our friends or unhealthy foods or whatever it is. But the only way with this kind of a healing process is through. Like Jesus sometimes is asking, you have to go through this. Yeah. Because if not, it's just the tentacles of it will come out in different ways in your life. And it's unnecessary. And I feel like we kind of handicap ourselves in our spirituality and what God created us to be if we really don't face these things. And that's the one question throughout this book that I have women asking themselves is, what is it that is keeping you from becoming the woman that God created you to be? Because there's always something, Father. There's these wounds that keep us from fully stepping into his will for our lives. And I realized through this healing process and this journey and everything I've gone through that every person has a purpose, has a plan, and has a mission they were specifically created for and why they are here right now. And it's up to us to kind of listen to that small, still voice. It's up to us to kind of do what we know we're supposed to do in order to fulfill that. But I will go one step further with that. That's been really huge in my life is that you know how you hear people say that Jesus is a gentleman. God's right. He'll never force his will on us, right? And that is absolutely true. And just like all of hell can come after me with a temptation. Yeah. But if I don't give my will over to it and I don't say yes, there's nothing that the devil can do. But we always look at the evil side of it. But if you look at if we give God consent in our lives to truly transform us into whatever it is he created us to be, it's huge, because we're actually giving God that consent. Because half the time you're standing like, I want to do your will, whatever your will is in my life, I want you to help me do that. But we actually have to give God permission to transform us in that way to fulfill whatever it is he's created for. Just like we have to give permission over to the sin. It's the same thing. And that's a big deal, because God will never, and unless you give permission on all levels, you really do grow in your spirituality. But I feel like all these wounds that these women are carrying around, especially sexual wounds, really handicap us in our lives and what it is God's calling us to do and be.
I just saw a little video clip the network had on whatever website, but it was like excerpts from Mother on the live show, and she talked about the path to holiness begins, or the most important thing is like you have to accept those crosses, those difficulties, what's in our life. Because oftentimes we might jump to, I got to do X, Y, and Z, but have you accepted the struggle you have now, or working on that stuff that's right in front of you, that he's presenting? That's something I just read out of a book or something.
Yes, exactly. And like checking it off. Just the checklist, right? And I'm being a good Catholic. It's like, well, are you being a surfacey Catholic? Or are you being a real Catholic, Because a real Catholic, we carry our cross. We have crosses. There's no way around it. That was the path for Jesus, and that's going to be the path for us. And I don't know where, and it's like, where did this lie come from that life should be easy and it shouldn't be so hard, And I've heard that term come out of a lot of moms' mouths and wives' mouths. But it's the same lie regurgitated that the evil one has given all of us of, it shouldn't be that hard.
Right.
Like it should be easier. But it's like, well, who says that? Who's telling me this?
Right.
Is this of God? Because Jesus carried his cross, and he was really living out the Father's will, and it was not easy, But women can do unbelievable, great things, but they really truly have to face it, own it, and heal it. And Mother Angelica is actually one of the contributors. There's about 12 contributors, women, and then there's actually Father Joseph Mary. And he wrote a chapter in the book, and his is Beauty Tips, which is great, because when I saw the title of it, I was just like, wow, this is going to be amazing. All right, let's go, Father. But it's really your spiritual beauty and the things that you can do, and break it down, because we don't think that way. We think of the outer beauty, and it's really more of like cover up almost to like what's happening. We have it all together, when a lot of the times we really don't. But that's okay if you don't, and we don't have to hide that, but don't be afraid of it. And if you're becoming the strong woman of God who wants to heal, who wants to be whole, who wants to face those things, God can do great things with you, and he'll bless you for it. But we can't be afraid of whatever it is God's asking us to do in our lives and the direction he's taking us.
Yeah. And like the spiritual healing for you, like what did it look like? Was, you talked about adoration. Was there meditation or scriptures, or was it spending time with Jesus, like at Mass, at the Eucharist? That was the big source of it? Or was it specific exercises you did?
So we'll go back to the 4 pillars I talked about in the beginning, right? So the first one was finding a priest. Let's start with that one. The priest, you need to find a good priest and a good confessor, and one that you really can go to be accountable to. Because if you really want to grow in your spirituality, you go to the same confessor, because they get to know you and they get to know your vices, and it's just not like this one-off, just hiding behind a screen like, I did this, and okay, it's really facing yourself with that priest to help guide you through to spiritually grow.
And I think part of that too, sometimes, we might jump to, okay, do they give me correction or whatever? But to me, I kind of think like the fundamental thing is, can I really just get honest with them?
Exactly.
Is there something, whatever it is, personality quirks or whatever, different ways of seeing. If I can't get honest with this priest, maybe I should find one I do feel comfortable with to get honest with. I see that in my own life, just how vital that is. I like that honesty is really the bedrock, I think, of spiritual progress. That I can really bring the inside out, so to speak.
And almost bringing your spirituality from your head to your heart, of like really taking that self-reflection, and that spiritual inventory of what's really going on that people really want to avoid, because they don't want to look at themselves. And that's why I feel like the devil distracts us so much on the outside with everything in these bones, and there's just it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want us going on the inside. Because that's if we can clean all of that up, he's powerless.
Okay.
He doesn't have as much power, right? So it's finding a good confessor and going to confession every 2 weeks, once a month, right? And a spiritual director to go through your healing process with. And then
let me just say that real quick too. It's like, I know like priests, there's a few priests out there, sometimes you might scare them away and say, I need a spiritual director. But I think it's a great first start. Just like you said, just stick with one confessor. One guy really gets to know you. And so you don't have to tell the priest you're treating him as a spiritual director. But basically that's going to happen naturally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So. And we all need that guy. Yeah. We do. It's important. The second was finding a good Catholic counselor, obviously, and if you don't like the first one you go to or you feel uncomfortable, it's not meshing, that's okay. This isn't about them. This is about you. And don't be afraid to just say, this isn't working, or just to find another one. And that's okay. And there's really no excuse anymore not to, if you need it, counseling, because you can do it in the privacy of your own home. Most counselors, because of COVID, are set up to do it right there on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever it is, or phone calls. And I did that for a while, and it works out. So there's not the excuse of, well, they're too far, this or that. You can find really good, solid Catholic counselors now because of that reason. The next thing would be Eucharistic adoration, which honestly, that's why I talked about that at the very, very beginning. Really, it transformed me as a woman in every aspect of my life. How can you not be transformed just sitting in front of Jesus and his light and his mercy and his love and his gaze? And I mean, and I tell my kids, and everybody knows this analogy, but I'll say it just for kicks, right? It's just like today it's completely cloudy, and we don't see the sun, but it's there and it's still affecting us, and we feel it, and it's helping the earth and the plants, and it's taking it in its life. And it's the same thing in adoration. And maybe you don't feel worthy, because I didn't for a very long time. To even go and like, what am I going to say? What do I do? Like, you feel awkward. You don't have to do anything in there. You just have to go, and God will do the rest from that point on.
Mother Angelica said that so many times. On her
Yes.
show.
Absolutely. And I love her because she comes from a mess, and I didn't know that in the beginning, but she comes from a divorced family. She comes from a hard past. And it's beautiful what God did in her. It's unbelievable through her. Right. And she really came from a lot of yuck, so it doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done, but it does matter what you do now and where you go from here. You don't have to repeat the same problems, but if you don't heal, you will.
And I like the theme, what you're bringing up here too, what the Monsignor was talking about too, about, like
that was interesting dinner last night.
Well, like we're receiving, right? We don't take communion, right? The person's given communion. It's an image of the whole incarnation, God coming down to us. And so like we're coming to confession in that sacramental grace. He's offering us forgiveness. He's giving us grace to overcome our sins. Like we're receiving here. And you come to adoration, we're receiving, we're letting him work on us. That's just been a big point for me in my own life the last few years. It's like, it's just like the confessional can just revive us. We can be dead in sin, and it just like pumps life back in to resurrect us.
Like Lazarus moment. I've had many Lazarus moments in confession.
Right.
Serious stuff. And an exorcist once said, and I'm sure other saints have said, like, confession is a mini exorcism. Right? But I mean, people are going in there to just face their demons.
Well, Gabriel Amorth in his book talks about, that's more powerful than an exorcism, is confessing your sins, receiving the Eucharist. That's more powerful than receiving an exorcism.
And it takes a level of humility, and that's one thing the devil cannot duplicate. He cannot replicate. He cannot, it's just, he can't stand it. And that's why we go in there, and it does take a level of humility to do that. But at the same time, that when we go there and we think, well, God doesn't want me, God doesn't love me till I'm perfect, and then he'll love me, then he'll show me. But it's really, no, God wants to meet you in that mess. He wants to love you in that mess. He wants to heal you and help you and make you whole. You've got to let him in. And it's not like you're hiding from him anyway. He sees everything. We think we're we're hiding from Jesus, but I think we just are running from ourselves.
Yeah.
And facing that. And there is a lot of shame in that. And I've experienced that shame and that yuck, and you just want to crawl out of your own skin. It's a horrible feeling, but I can sit here and I can talk so openly about everything that's happened to me in my past because I have no shame. I'm not shameful. Those things have been healed in me. God has restored those things in me and graced me with his love and his mercy and his gifts and whatever else. And if I didn't heal, I couldn't be sitting here talking about those things. But there is something on the other side of those crosses, of that darkness and, just going through in that struggle. There is a better life on the other side that God intended for you in the first place.
Yeah. Well, healing that shame, I think so. I mean, it's beautifully written in the sacrament of confession. You're getting honest with somebody, but too, there's a healing, just like with maybe getting honest with some close friends, safe friends that you can share. Has that been part of your process too?
That's the fourth pillar of what it was, because you really have to get rid of, step back and really look at your life. And who are those toxic people? Who are those people that are bringing you down? Who are those people that keep you down? Who are those people that really aren't lifting you up and helping you, but really kind of hurting you and keeping you there? Yeah. And people think that they're helping people, like, oh, well, I can't do that. It'll hurt her. And they're just nice to a fault, where you're hurting your own spirituality and growth and who you're supposed to be for God. That's not helping anyone. It just doesn't. Right. You have to take care of yourself sometime. And so in my own healing process, I literally had to just tell a lot of people in my life, even some family members, look, I need to go through this healing process right now, or I have to go through this right now. And this is about me, not you. So don't take it personally, because at the end of the day, it was about me, and I just can't talk to you right now. Right. And when I'm ready and I'm healed, or I get through this, then I'll let you know. But I really gave God the freedom in my life during that time, because I'm an all or nothing person, Father. Right. And either I'm going to do this or I'm not. And I really gave God the freedom of okay, I'm going to get rid of who I know I need to, and whoever you want back in my life, I'll allow you to bring them to me. Because there are some people that you think are good and helping you, and they are just downright toxic. And sometimes those toxic people, but you don't have the guts and gumption to just look, this is not working anymore in my life for me. Right. But you have to, in a healing process, in this, what you want to do in this kind of caliber of it, you have to get rid of the poison in your life.
And how do you label that fourth pillar? What's that called?
Really just getting rid of the toxic people in your life, but then also finding that good group of a handful of people that will support you during this process, that are going to love you and lift you up, that you can cry on their shoulder, that they can almost walk with you a little bit. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be one or two of just look, I'm going to be going through this, and to help you and walk with you a little bit. You need that. And God doesn't want you alone in it either, but he wants things right ordered.
So you're sharing kind of everything with that one or two people?
Not necessarily. You do that with your priest. You do that with the counselor on what needs to be healed within you. And these people are more just support people that just love you and want what's best for you. Right. As to where it's not well, what can I get out of this relationship? How can I use you? What are they using you as a verbally vomiting all their problems on you all the time, and it's weighing you down, kind of thing. But it's more just they want what's best for you. You want what's best. It's just a healthy, good, godly relationship, right? Yeah. And if it's not, get rid of it. What are you doing? It's you want to walk around with a thorn, and it's it's getting infected, and it's bad. It's not okay, but you don't want to take it out because it's going to hurt taking it out. Just knock it off. Go get it out, Yeah. But it's not always that easy. It's not. And I experienced that, especially with family members. Yeah. But at the same time, I know I could have gone through what I went through and go to those places within me with kind of that interference in my life. I didn't need it. I was going through enough. But those were the 4 things that I did. So let's just go over them really quick. I got a good priest, and I went to them, and just a good confessor as well, a spiritual director. And if you need some healing prayers as well with that priest, they can help you with that, because sometimes a lot of these serious sins and things that happen come with just some spiritual healing that needs to take place as well. Right. And that's okay. That's not out of the ordinary. There's some normalcy to that, right? If you're kind of in that spiritual realm there. And then don't be afraid to be honest either of things that have happened, because that's another thing that fear can take over. Yeah. And then that good Catholic counselor, right? That's number 2. And adoration. I would go to counseling, Father, and I would go straight to adoration every time. Because you're so open and raw, and the things that came up it's like you have to almost have a place for them, but counseling is. But then I would literally go to Jesus, and I would sit in the back of that adoration chapel, and there's times where I would cry. There's times I would walk in there and I would be mad at God. I'm like, you are kidding me. Like, you know, and times where I would go in there and I wouldn't have memories of things that would like, I can't believe I'm thinking of these things, or this is like coming to me now. And I'm in adoration. Like, you're just like looking around and you see these like old women, their veils. And, but then do you know, I can't remember those thoughts anymore. I really don't. I know it happened, but it's like almost Jesus is doing surgery on you. He's healing you. He's taking from you, replacing good things, whole things that maybe you lacked or needed, and, you know, and get rid of the filth. But when you're so open and vulnerable and you allow God just to go in and do what he needs to do, it's like we're almost afraid of the rejection and almost afraid to like hope in that he will do that. Because what if he doesn't, you know? But he will, and he does, and he fulfills his promises that he gives us in the Bible.
And maybe some people would think that this is over spiritualization, but I love that we had a group of these couples that were almost divorced, and the Alexander House, I think, was connected to them, and Father Jimmy Dean, local priest, he did shows with them. But I remember they loved this quote from one of the prophets saying, you know, God will restore what the locusts have eaten. I have to look that up. I forgot where that's at, but I just absolutely love that thing, because, you know, because God, and I think he does that in adoration in a special way, and that could just be, you know, just coming before Jesus in the tabernacle, that there's a healing, there's a damage due to sin that he can heal. And we think it's maybe all lost, but I think there's a real healing that just takes place. Again, he's coming to us. Sometimes we put the focus so much, you know, I got to have the right thoughts, right meditation, the right words, I got to do X, Y, you know, but just coming before him, I think allows him to work on us and to heal that. And I think that's obviously one of the fruits of confession too, to heal what sin has damaged in us. But it happens too, I think, in the Eucharist. And,
absolutely. And not be afraid. And a lot of the times we feel unworthy, or we just feel, you know, but you got to become as Eucharistic as possible right now, especially in this day and age, right? And it's the year of the Eucharist. It is. It's like this Eucharistic revival, you know, everyone is being called. And a lot of people say, well, I don't hear God's voice. I don't hear God in my life. And we were talking about this earlier. I straight out tell them, I don't believe you, because I was in the deepest, darkest time in my life, and I could go to clubs and I could drug out and I can do everything I could to just like numb that conscience and that voice. But I couldn't. And I still heard God pursuing me in the midst of that kind of filth I was living. So when people say, I don't hear God, well, you hear that small, still voice. Should I be addicted to this Netflix show? Should I be dating this person? Should I be really in this job right now? Should I be going out tonight? Should I be wearing this? Like, there's just that little, like, deep down, your conscience is there. And we know right from wrong. Well, let's start there. If you don't hear God's voice, just start with that and start following what you know to be good and true, and don't fight against it, but go with that, you know? You'll hear God's voice. And he'll tell you what you should be doing, really. But we don't want to be obedient. It's hard. It's difficult. And we want what we want. And we think we know better sometimes, or sometimes that relationship is more important than our relationship with God, and it's disordered, and we don't want to let it go. But sometimes you just have to, because is it bettering you? Is it helping you? Are you happy? Pretty much no. You know, I've experienced all of that, and I could speak from my own experience about that. So it's just like, you know what? Why continue hurting yourself? Why continue to choose to be miserable? You know, it doesn't make sense. It's unnecessary.
It seems like for most people, it's like a continuum, like a struggle, that it's progress, you know, that you have to make, and it's incremental, and like maybe you have some big healing, some big stuff you let go of, but the binge eating, watching, social media stuff is still hanging on. There's still relapses there.
Yes, the residue.
That can be discouraging, right? Why am I still spending too much time on social media? You know, why am I still eating unhealthily? And What do you how do you encourage women there to?
Well, when I hear someone say that, or they can't get rid of something, right? There's always going to be a spiritual struggle away, and wherever the devil can latch on, he's going to latch on and try to anchor us down as much as possible. So the demonic dialogue that you're experiencing, you kind of have to address it and just not take it in everything of just like, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not this, and just get beat down in those times of weakness, of just like, you're never going to change. It's always going to be this way. Like, we have to kind of check ourselves at that door of mentally, what is it we're telling ourselves or just allowing in? Because half the time, that's not of God. And that's the evil one just beating you down and trying to go back on those wounds.
Right.
And that demonic dialogue can be paralyzing sometimes, especially to women. Yeah. But at the same time, and Emily Wilson and I were talking about it, and she says, Crystalina, when that happens, I just say, Jesus, tell me the truth in that moment. And I've learned to say that out loud in my own house and in my own life, because one, the devil can't stand Jesus, and he sure can't stand the truth, and he's got to go. And that's how it is. The closer you get to Jesus, especially in the Eucharist, the devil cannot stand his light, and he will flee. So check how you're talking to yourself, the things you're saying, and the belief system that you're operating out of. Right. And then second, I would say, when's the last time you went to confession? When's the last time you took like a real serious, honest look at yourself and did a spiritual inventory? Because you want to get better, but are you doing what needs to be done and necessary not to fall back into those things? I mean, you're struggling with purity with your boyfriend, so it's like, okay, well, let's just go on Friday night to your house and watch a movie by ourselves on your couch, but we're struggling with impurity. It's like, it's not hard, you know? I think sin to be maybe a little brutally honest when I say this, because sin makes you stupid and you don't think, you don't want to, because that's what it did to me when I was living that life. It's just like, I knew better. Like, I knew the stove was hot, but I put my hand down on it anyway, you know? It's like, I heard God's voice. I knew better, but sometimes we want what we want. And that's where I would say, it's just like, just check yourself, like get some spiritual inventory. If you really want to do this, it can be done. You know, start your dates. If, like, for example, with your boyfriend, go to adoration first. Start with God, become Eucharistic in your lives and where you are lacking that. Because sometimes you really do need God's spiritual grace to overcome a lot of these things. Because I tried so many times, like, I'm never doing that again. I'm not going to fall back into that sin. I'm not going to those parties anymore, blah, 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 blah. And I tried, I promised myself, but then I would just fall right back into it. And there I was waking up Saturday morning, like, how did this happen again? And then you even go worse into depression, worse into like, you're so weak and you're worthless. And then the devil really beats up on you, right? But it was when I did it with God is when I got out of that pit and that filth. It was only when I did it with the grace of God. And so if someone really wants to overcome a vice or a struggle or something coming at them in their life, they have to do it with Jesus or they will fall flat on their face. And that's the end of it, because you can't fight the evil one. But God already defeated the evil one. It's done, you know, and he can, but it takes a level of humility that we need help, and that's okay.
And I think, say the prayer to yourself. Like, I think what you're talking about too is just like, say a little prayer asking for strength or whatever to overcome this. And, but too, something I was mentioning to you, we had our retreat, our community retreat last year, and it was on the spiritual exercises. And, Ignatius of Loyola, to me, he's like one of the tough guy saints, right? Took a cannonball in the leg and all this stuff. He was a soldier. He's getting pre-conversion. He was in fights and maybe killed somebody and stuff. But, he talked about that decision to fight the devil, that he compares the devil like to a woman. And he said, if you show weakness, she'll come at you with untold fury, but if you make that decision that I'm going to fight back, she'll run away. He'll run away, the devil will run away. And I was always kind of wary of like, okay, I'm going to fight the devil, whatever, because it's like an ice cube in a furnace, or something. But I realized there is a deep truth there that, we have to cooperate with God. We have to make the decision. Now, it's a decision that's going to say, God help me, and I'm going to say my prayers. But it still comes with a decision that we have to make that, hey, I'm against this.
Engaging your will.
Right, engaging the will. And then God's grace strengthens that.
We're self-willed people. Like,
Yeah.
we have to do it. God will not do it for us.
Right.
And nobody's coming to rescue you.
Right. Right.
You have to do it on your own, and then God
Mhm.
will help you in that,
Mhm.
But it's like, you are going to fall. Yes. Do I fall? Yes. Am I completely healed? No. Do I have a struggle? Do I have a daily battle?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Who doesn't? We're all sinners.
Right.
Nobody's
Yeah.
perfect. But at the same time, you need to get up and show up to your own fight.
Mm-hmm.
That God is asking you to fight, but he'll fight right along a side of you. But you have to show up. You have to engage your will, and you have to put our pride aside and just be like, okay, what really needs to be done in my life? And just know it's not on the outside of you.
Yeah.
It's on the inside where you start, and then God will show on the outside what needs to be taken away, what needs to happen, where you need to go, what you need to do. But you've got to just go talk to him.
You might know who this is. I can't remember the person's name, but I remember interviewing this young woman one time, and she gets up, and she said every morning she gets up, and says her prayers, whatever. I forgot the order, but she gets up and does one push-up. And I love that, because it wasn't like she's doing this for fitness.
Yeah.
She's just doing this to engage her will, to do something hard off the bat.
Wow.
And I haven't done it. I'm just thinking about it right now. I got to do that.
It's like, come on, Father, let's go.
Yeah, it's like, just to remind myself, is like, okay, you're involved in this struggle. It's not just God.
Yeah.
You're involved with it, and you have to make this decision for the Lord. We just have a minute or two left. What is, I was just reading a quote at the end of Vatican II. I guess Paul VI was talking about women's role, and they have a new role to play in society, a new opportunity and things. What are women bringing to the table, and how is that needed today in this fight in our culture?
I think our feminine genius that is just built within us, right? Mm-hmm. And Lisa Cotter has a beautiful, unbelievable, eloquent chapter on feminine genius within the book. But stay in your lane, ladies. Where it is God wants you. Mm-hmm. It's like you want to strive to do all these great things sometimes. We have our families, we have our ministries, we have all of these things. But at the end of the day, it's all about doing the will of God. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about. And it's not, and the thing is, if we could die and we could stand before God and say, I fulfilled the mission that you created me for. I did it. Can you imagine? If we actually could die and say, I did what you asked me to do, is huge, because then that means that person had a huge effect on all the people around him. Whatever it is God asked them to do, they're doing it well because they're operating in his grace and will. And I would say to the women out there, if you want to be a force to be reckoned with, especially in this crazy, out of control, dark world coming after us now, just listen to that small, still voice. And I tell my kids, it's a compass, because it's the best way they can describe it, right? Yeah. But it's your compass to heaven. Just listen to everything God's telling you. Don't blow God off. That was my problem, is I blew God off all the time. Well, later. It doesn't seem like it's that important. No, it's huge. If God, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, is talking to you about a specific issue or problem or thing or matter, I mean, we got to get off our butt and address it. It's a big deal, and we should take it as that. And
that's how we're going to bear the most fruit.
Yes.
Right? That's how we're really going to have a fruitful life. Yeah.
You know a tree by its fruit. Yeah. At the end, you know a tree by its fruit. We're getting a lot of lip service right now. We don't know what is what, maybe, and trying to sifting through what's right, what's wrong, what's real, what's not. You just know a tree by its fruits. Yeah. And that came from Jesus' mouth himself. And so just to know that, and don't be afraid. I'm really sick and tired of a lot, especially just men and just women being afraid of the culture right now and almost cowering and not standing up.
You said men first.
Well, men are the protectors, Father, okay? Men are the protectors. Women are not meant to be the protectors, but in our families and whatnot. But we can't be afraid as Catholics in general, just to be afraid and cower to whatever the culture is wanting and demanding of us, stripping of us. It's just like, we need to hold our ground, just protect what is holy, good, and true, and sacred, And deep down we know, but we need to get right ourselves. But we can help anyone in the culture, because I don't care what you're doing or how good it is. If you're a mess and you're not it's not operating out of the will of God, it's nonsense. It's not going to hold. It won't stay the line, stay the course, but just stay the course, do what God is asking, and show up to your own fight, and just go to Jesus in the Eucharist. And that's an invitation for everybody.
And, one of my guests on one time, She said her father used to always tell her, go to war with what you got.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
show up. Because I think some of us, it's personality thing, some of us are choleric, you just go charging in there. Some of us, all melancholic, you suffer from perfectionism, and it can be get discouraged and say, well, I didn't do that well enough. I didn't do that good enough. I'm not a good enough mommy or whatever. But I think it sometimes helps just take a step back and say, no, I showed up, and God can use me when I show up. And maybe he did it in all my weakness and weak ways. But like with confession, sometimes I'll come out of hearing confessions, and I think, man, I could have been so much better with people in confession. But it's like, Mark, you just heard confessions for over an hour. You were available to those people. Don't lose sight of that,
Exactly.
Or that I went to this parish and had Mass, and the priests, they wouldn't have had Mass, right? Without the priest filling in for someone over there.
Yes.
So I think, I think we got to remember the big picture too. I remember one time going to this, like a 60th or 50th wedding anniversary, and I was just dreading it the whole time. I don't want to go sit through this and blah, blah, blah. And they start with this slideshow, this projection, and they're playing like a sappy 70s love song. And I literally think, this is going to be horrible. I'm going to sit through all this. And it was the most beautiful thing, because it was like, you had like these black and white pictures of like the family in the first home and the family in front of the car. And then you see like more children added over the years, and they're playing the music. And it's like, we forget, I think, the big picture of what's going on here. In the nitty gritty, it's kind of ugly sometimes. There's a struggle, human frailty. But just take a step back from God's perspective and see what happened here.
Exactly.
You had a family. You built a family.
And speaking of family, everyone is welcome at God's table. Like no one is excluded, right?
Right.
Everyone's welcome. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has a seat. We're not in competition with each other. We need to build each other up, right? And that just because this person may have similar gifts from me, especially with women, right?
Yeah.
If she's like, well, it's similar with similar ministries. It's just like, well, no, she's reaching people that I may not, and I'm reaching people that she may not.
Right.
But we have different unique gifts and styles, the way we approach things, but that doesn't make her my enemy or competition.
Right.
We all have a seat at God's table, and we need to start working together instead of tearing each other down and being territorial. The real enemy's out there, not within here.
Right.
And we need to help each other, and just, it's okay. We don't have to be afraid of what's here in the church. We have to be afraid of what's coming after the church,
Right.
And not to be afraid to stand up and fight for what is good and right. And really, like you said, Father, is look at the big picture of things, because we can all help each other right now, really.
Right. Well, thank you, Crystalina, for your work and sitting down with us. And I know you got another appointment, so
thank you for having me, Father. It's been fun. So, thank you.